Welcome, Fantasizers. Welcome to another episode of Your Big Fat Fantasy. I'm Anthony Bravo.
And I'm Nicholas Logan. This is episode 17 of your BFF, the Halloween edition.
The Halloween special.
If you can take any guesses to who we are, I'm pretty sure it's easy. If you have any sort of pop culture knowledge.
Yeah, you should know who we are.
But if not, he is Napoleon Dynamite. I'm Hugh Hefner.
And we just wanted to make this episode a little special for you guys. We're going to be jumping into our hits and misses. We got some tricks, some trick players, some treat players, and some
killer players.
Some killers, which are, the best of the best.
So yeah, just fantasy related, Halloween related
we got some
content. So that's what we're going to make this episode about. Try to make it nice and fun.
And we got some trades we're going to discuss as well, or some trade rumors. And let's hop into it.
For week 8.
Yeah, let's hop into it. I'll go with my hit. It's going to be Tom Brady. Actually went 26 for 44 against the Ravens with 1 touchdown and 17.1 PPR points. Was my only hit this week, and he actually still came out with the loss. And honestly, it's probably a new low for Tom Brady right now. He is 3-5, and the Bucs are just not looking like the Bucs right now.
Yeah, and like you mentioned on the last episode, probably the off-the-field issues. Talked about the old men just not being in. It could be a lot of off-field issues for a lot of those guys. Who knows? But yeah, Tom Brady not getting it done. I'm going to go with my first pick was Leonard Fournette from last week. I know I picked him for the Sunday game in Week 7, but he did have a better game in Week 8. I just traded for him. So I was happy to see him. He did get that first touchdown of the game and then kind of was slow the whole rest of the game until the fourth quarter. Got some garbage time points, but ended up finishing with 14.8 fantasy points. Played 72% of the snaps, which is back up from his season low last week, which was 60%. Had 9 rushes for 24 yards. Not great, but did have a TD and 3 catches for 34 yards. So
yeah, Rachaad White may be a player you want to get if you have Fournette.
Yeah, and I have him as the back. And he
looked
good. He looked good on
for sure.
Thursday.
Yeah, he's a passing back, and Tom Brady loves his passing back. So
he looks like Fournette when he's out there. When I was watching the game, I was looking. I'm like, is that Fournette? And I was like, it was Rachaad White. I'm like, oh, he plays and looks like Fournette.
You don't even notice any difference. But that brings me to my misses. I'll go with my first miss. It's going to be Rashad Bateman. He actually aggravated his foot injury in this game, only had 1 target, and he didn't even catch it. So he ended up leaving the game with a donut, 0 PPR points, and he left guys like Devin Duvernay and Demarcus Robinson to eat up the target share.
Yeah, they both look good. Duvernay had a wet rushing touchdown. Demarcus Robinson had a lot of targets that game too.
Yeah, they both.
I talked about in the preseason. Keep on your radars in case those receivers go down.
I believe they both had over 15 PPR points too.
Yeah,
so that's solid flex play right there.
For real. Yeah, and if they're selling waivers, pick them up.
Yeah.
And then my second hit is going to be Mike Evans, 18.3 fantasy points. Another guy on my fantasy team that I chose. Back-to-back 18-plus fantasy weeks. I had 11 targets, 6 catches, and 123 yards. So a big game for Big Mike once again.
Yeah, and you said you weren't going to miss him this week, and you didn't.
Same with Fournette.
Same with Fournette. He went 3 for 3. I went 1 for 3, and brings me to my last miss. Cade Otton, he was my sleeper, and he didn't play like a sleeper. Only caught 2 receptions for 15 yards and 3.5 PPR points. Not the game I was expecting. Mike Evans and Julio Jones received more of the opportunities than Cade Otton. And I thought he was going to produce more, and he didn't. So.
Yeah, and that'll lead me to my last pick. Like you said, I went 3 for 3. Lamar Jackson, he did hit, had 4 down weeks in a row, but finally had a decent game. Probably not as good as he did the first 3 weeks of the season, but still put up 21.82 fantasy points. I know the Bucs are probably expecting a really big run-heavy offense from the Ravens, but that's not what happened. Lamar Jackson actually threw for 38 times, 27 completions, which were both season highs. Hasn't thrown that much or had that many completions this season. Had 238 throwing yards, 2 touchdowns, and had 9 rushes for 43 yards. So a decent game, a different game for Lamar Jackson. Not a lot of rushes, a lot more throws, and but he looked good out there against a pretty tough Bucs defense.
Yeah, for sure. Did look good. And that's going to be the end of our hits and misses. You want to jump into our tricks and treats and killers?
Yeah, so, trick or treat, that's what you say when you knock on your door when you're a kid, when you want some candy. So this year, sometimes you get candy that you don't like, and, sometimes you get some candy that you love, I love Snickers. I don't want to get no Tootsie Rolls when I was trick-or-treating. But I definitely got some Snickers this year. Definitely got some Tootsie Rolls this year with the way I drafted.
Yeah, for sure.
But I'll start with my tricks this year. My first trick, the biggest trick, probably gonna be Kyle Pitts. Yeah, right now the tight end 23, not a guy you expected if you were getting him in the third, fourth round of drafts.
Was being drafted as a tight end 3, I remember.
Yeah, it was supposed to be the third after Kelsey and Travis Kelsey and Mark Andrews, respectfully, you know. And if you're a dynasty drafter and this was your first season, I'm sure you were getting Kyle Pitts in the first, second round, and he's definitely probably the first tight end off the board. But yeah, not looking good, averaging 6.63 fantasy points per game. Only getting 5 targets a game, which ranks 15th amongst tight ends. And you're talking about a guy who's supposed to be a physical specimen. You talk about he's supposed to be a unicorn, but he's 15th among all tight ends in the league in targets. And that's not what you expect from a guy who they drafted in the first round, the Falcons last year, a guy that you probably drafted in the first few rounds this year. Yeah. Just not looking like they're going to him a lot in the passing game. Only 178 yards this year, 1 touchdown. His best game was week 3. He finished with 13.7 fantasy points and only finished as a top tight end once this year. That was week 3, like I said, and then week 6. Week 3, he was a 6th ranked tight end, and week 6, he was the 12th ranked tight end. I know if you're a dynasty owner, obviously you want to keep him around. He's still young, has a lot of potential, but if you're in those redraft leagues, I'm sure at this point you're going with other options at tight end, sadly, now with Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely one of the biggest disappointments in fantasy this year, for sure. Another disappointment, another trick that I have is DK Metcalf. I just feel like it's a little tricky if you have DK because you don't really know if Geno Smith is going to go to him. You don't know if he's going to go to Tyler Lockett. We got that Marquise Goodwin. He went off last game. So, and also Seattle's a very run heavy team, and they'll be looking to run the ball more often now that newly rookie running back Kenneth Walker is becoming the new starter. And DK and Tyler Lockett are actually both questionable this week. So maybe another reason to maybe look to move them off your team for some more reliable pieces.
Yeah. I know Tyler Lockett's having a better season than DK, and he was going 3 or 4 rounds after DK too. So, even with the season that Geno Smith's having, you expect them to be, both top 10, 15 wide receivers this year, but they're both outside the 15th. And that'll take me to my next trick, going to be Darnell Mooney, wide receiver from the Chicago Bears. Was going around the 5th, 6th round. I'm sure a lot of people got him as their wide receiver 2 this year, maybe a wide receiver 3. I know I personally got him in the 6th round, and I drafted him kind of a lot in a lot of best ball leagues, and most of those drafts are my worst drafts that I have because of Darnell Mooney, wasting, early pick on him to be your top second receiver on your team. One of those guys that you're like, I can get receivers in that 5th, 6th round range, and you're looking at Darnell Mooney being that one. I mean, why not? Last year he was the wide receiver 24, especially with the quarterback situation there with Justin Fields and Andy Dalton and
he ran Allen Robinson out of town.
Yeah, so they really relied on him to be, the future. He's still young. He's still, same with Kyle Pitts, does have a lot of potential, especially in dynasty leagues. I'm sure in redraft leagues, he's probably on waivers now. Yeah. He's probably, I know I haven't started him since week 1. He's the wide receiver 65 right now and hasn't scored a touchdown this year. You have guys like Economy St. Brown who scored a touchdown. You have Dante Pettis has scored a touchdown. Even Velus Jones, their rookie, who's had a limited amount of snaps, has already had a touchdown this year. But Darnell Mooney, nothing, no touchdowns. Almost had one in that game winner a couple weeks ago in that Thursday night game. But has only finished as a wide receiver 2 once this year, and that was week 4. He only had 13.4 fantasy points. So like I said, a guy that you expected to be your wide receiver 2 on your team has only finished in that range once in 7 weeks. So
not something you want to see from a guy like that. It's going to bring me to my second trick, Terry McLaurin. Kind of a similar situation as Seattle, except there's more wide receivers that can possibly take touches away from Scary Terry. They got Curtis Samuel. They got Jahan Dotson, who is out, but he's still very talented. And they got Logan Thomas, and they are also having quarterback issues. They just promoted Taylor Heineke, and they demoted Carson Wentz. So that could just be a sign that they're trying to distribute the ball so Taylor Heineke could build chemistry, with all the players around the field.
Yeah, exactly. Terry McLaurin did have his best game of the season last year, or
Yeah.
last week, I mean, and
And
looked
I
good.
know Heineke and McLaurin, they do have good chemistry together, but
Yeah. In the beginning of the year, it was like Jahan Dotson was kind of the main guy. Then like Curtis Samuel's got some little sprinkles in there, of good games here and there. But either way, it should be Terry McLaurin. He's just way too talented to be,
yeah, a guy we were drafting in like the third, fourth, fifth
Yeah, a
round
guy who
too.
you're probably looking at as, hey, I can go running back heavy, maybe get a tight end like Kelsey Andrews or
Yeah.
Pitts in these first 3 rounds, and then get McLaurin as my number one wide receiver, and hasn't really produced
No.
like that. I think he's a wide receiver like
26
26.
on the
Yeah,
year.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and then that'll bring me to my last tricks. It's gonna be maybe two guys in here because they both play on the same team. But we'll start it off with Najee Harris. Been probably one of the biggest tricks this year, especially in any format. Redraft Dynasty Best Ball guy that was going in the first round, probably in 95% of leagues, 99% of leagues, if not
Early second, very early.
early second. Right now the running back 22, not bad, but you don't want your first round pick to be a running back 22.
No.
Last year, I mean, they said in the beginning of the year, so a lot of people, they probably faded off Najee because Mike Tomlin did say that they were going to rely less on him and give him less touches. And it showed. Last year, he was averaging 18 carries per game. This year, dropped all the way down to 14.3 carries per game. His yards per carry have gone down as well. Last year was 3.91. Now it's 3.29. He only has 3 total touchdowns this year, 1 rushing, 2 receiving, and only finished as a running back 1 once this year. That was week 2, and he barely finished as the running back 12. He had 13.9 fantasy points, I think like 0.5 ahead of J.D. McKissick, who was the RB13 that week. So yeah, Najee just not looking good. I know he just got that steel plate removed out of his foot, but still, since then, still looks like the same back he was the first 5-6 weeks of the season.
Looks like he still has that steel plate in.
Yeah, it's not looking good. We'll see. Obviously, I feel like you still got to start him.
Yeah.
Obviously, especially because it's RB22.
You kind of have no choice if that's your first round pick.
Yeah, and he's RB22, so it's not bad. He's your RB2 or flex at this point.
Yeah.
And then his teammate Deontay Johnson, another guy that was probably going like Terry McLaurin in those first 3-4 rounds, a guy that you probably thought he can be my, wide receiver 1, maybe my wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
I know if there's a lot of questions, but he got that deal this year. He signed a 2-year, $36.7 million deal. So a lot of people were confident that, they want to keep him around. They like the talent. But like I said, he's the wide receiver 32. Hasn't scored a touchdown this year. And he's leading his team in targets. He's leading the team in receptions. He's second in yards. He has 337 yards, and George Pickens has 338 yards. But on a lot less targets, George Pickens has only 1 less yard. Yeah, but Deontay Johnson has not found the end zone. Claypool has found the end zone. George Pickens has found the end zone. Guys that were going way later than Deontay Johnson in drafts. And week 3 was his best week, and even then he finished as the wide receiver 22. You have George Pickens, who's already finished in the top 12 once. You have Claypool, who's finished in the top 12 once, but their best receiver, Mr. Reliable, hasn't finished in the top 20 even this year.
Yeah.
So another trick, those 2 Steelers.
Definitely a trick. Brings me to my last trick, David Montgomery. And we kind of suspected this even in the preseason, but it's official. David Montgomery is in a timeshare with Khalil Herbert, according to Matt Eberflus. So some days we could see Montgomery have a good game, and other days it could be Herbert. And it's never a good thing for fantasy football when your running backs are in a timeshare. So if you have the chance to move Montgomery off your team, I suggest you do so. He hasn't received more than 17 touches in a game this season at all. So, yeah, man, not looking good for David Montgomery owners, and looking really good for Khalil Herbert owners.
Yeah, he's gonna be one of those late guys that can win a lot of leagues. I feel like Khalil Herbert. If you're making the playoffs, by then he might be that main back towards the end of the year.
Yeah,
especially with the Bears, they're not looking too bad. Justin Fields is kind of coming around, and even though he's coming around, like, Darnell Mooney isn't really coming around. So we picked 2 Bears, 2 Steelers, just teams in the bottom in their offense, teams that are in bottom in the league in offense. But yeah, those were our tricks. Gonna move on to our treats. So not everything is bad in fantasy. You might miss on some picks. You might miss on some guys you traded for or something. But there's some guys that you can find, in those mid to late rounds that they're treats, guys that other people weren't expecting to go off, and they're kind of your sleeper picks, and they have done nothing but sleep all year. My first up will be Josh Jacobs. Probably the biggest one right now. He's the RB5 right now. 3 straight games of 30-plus fantasy points, looking incredible. I know the Raiders didn't want to bring him back this year, but the way he's running the ball, he's looking like he deserves a big deal. And he's only 24 years old. It's his 4th year in the league, and he's still one of the youngest running backs. You know, he's the same age as Najee Harris, who's in his 2nd year. He's in the same age as Ramondre Stevenson, who he's in his 2nd year. And this guy's his 4th year in the league, only 24 years old. Going to deserve a lot of money this offseason. His agent's going to be happy. He's going to be really happy. If you're a Josh Jacobs owner, you're very happy. One of the biggest treats. I know I said a stat on the last show, but I actually went and looked it up. So he's the 3rd running back in the last 15 years to run for 140 yards and at least 1 touchdown in 3 straight games. The other 2, like I said, were Adrian Peterson and Derrick Henry. So Josh Jacobs, like you said, is an elite company with those guys the last 3 games, looking like the bell cow. I know a lot of people were scared because Josh McDaniels was coming to town, and, you know, they were really running back committee last year in New England with him as the offensive coordinator. But Josh Jacobs has taken over, and the Raiders are looking like a whole different team when he's out there running the ball the way he has. His last 3 games, like I said, has 69 total carries for 440 total rushing yards and 6 touchdowns the last 3 games. Just outstanding numbers. Week in and week, the last 3 games has been just one of the best fantasy players overall. He's actually been the top 3 running back those 3 weeks. His first 3 games, he had no touchdowns, and he had no game with 20 carries those first 3 games. But since then, he has, like I said, taken over. So
it's not looking like Zamir White's going to see the field anytime soon.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's going to bring me to my first treat. Kind of a treat if you drafted him in the 2nd round. It's going to be Aaron Jones. He's currently the running back 10. So he's going for low-end running back 1 value, but I believe he has high-end running back 1 potential, especially since he's the only playmaker in Green Bay right now that Aaron Rodgers likes. The only downside is that he has a Week 14 bye, so it could be a big blow if, like, you're that 5th, 6th, 7th seed just about to get into playoffs. You're probably not going to have Aaron Jones for Week 14. So Week 14 is going to be a very important week for you. So if you have Aaron Jones and you're looking to make a playoff push, just make sure you have a solid fill-in for him on Week 14.
Yeah, definitely. And my next, the guy I just talked about, Ramondre Stevenson, his 2nd year in the league. But looking like the main running back in New England, a guy we talk a lot about on this show. Right now, the running back 8 right now, but he started the season in a committee with Damian Harris.
Yep.
A guy that I got personally in the 7th round. I got him in two redraft leagues in the 7th round, so I know, and he's starting in my lineup every week. And as a running back 8, you're getting him in the 7th round. That's one of the biggest treats you can go for. Like Josh Jacobs going in the 6th, 7th round as well. RB3. Big treat. Ramondre Stevenson, a big treat to me personally. He's averaging 20.28 fantasy points per game since week 3, since taking over the backfield. He already has 487 yards. Last year, he had 606 total. He already has 98 carries. Last year, he had 133 carries, and his yards per game have gone up. He's at 4.97 yards per carry. Last year was 4.56. And he already has 4 touchdowns this year, which was 1 more than his total last year when he had 3. He's also having more targets this year. So a lot of guys, they were getting Ramondre Stevenson those 7th, 8th round to be like a filler running back for those bye weeks because he has that PPR potential. He's going to be the receiving back.
Yeah.
And he is the receiving back. And the running back for them.
He's a receiving back and more now.
Yeah, he's more now because even last year, he already has more targets and receptions than last year and more receiving yards. Last year, he had 29 targets. Sorry, last year he had 18 targets. Now he's up to 29. He has more receptions this year, 25. Last year he had 14, and last year had 123 receiving yards last year. Now up to 145. So seen a lot more in the receiving game, a lot more in the running game.
Bill
one
Belichick
of my
loves this
favorite picks this year was Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah, me too. Bill Belichick loves that guy, and he's going to continue to feed him the ball, especially if, their quarterback plays up to par. Definitely going to be feeding Ramondre. Brings me to my second treat is a healthy Jalen Waddle. The Tua and the Waddle connection is very strong. I feel like it's always been strong, and I expect it to continue to be strong as long as Tua's at the quarterback position. He's due for a big game against Detroit this week. only downside to Jalen Waddle is that his week 15 to week 17 schedule is very tough. He should be able to do well in week 14 against the Chargers, but he has Buffalo in week 15. He has Green Bay in week 16, and then he has New England in week 17. So just a thing to keep an eye out for sure if you have Jalen Waddle, but definitely a treat in my opinion.
Yeah, another guy you're probably getting the mid rounds.
Yeah, like probably
as your
fifth, sixth. Yeah.
second or third receiver taken.
Yeah.
Sure, people were getting Darnell Mooney over, a guy like Jalen Waddle. So.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for those people, I was probably one of them. But nonetheless, leaving on to my last treat. One of my biggest treats, one of my favorite players actually this season, Geno Smith, a guy that I had in my Dynasty League as my fourth best quarterback coming into the season, a guy that I just kind of picked up off waivers just in case he might start this year, just in case he might be good, a guy that maybe I can start him as a QB2 on bye weeks. Someone gets injured. Maybe I might drop him to start the season. We'll see. But nonetheless, he's in my starting lineup now. No questions asked. He's found a spot on my team. He's found a home in Seattle. Geno Smith having his best season, 32 years old, and, just looks like the future of Seattle. I mean, why not? He's a QB7 right now, averaging 17.7 fantasy points per game, 11 passing touchdowns. His career high is 13, so he might break his career high this week. He's seventh in the league in passing yards with 1,712 passing yards, and he's first in the league in completion percentage with 73% completion percentage, and he's the highest graded quarterback when he has a clean pocket. Second highest, Patrick Mahomes is first. He has a 92.1 quarterback grade with a clean pocket. Geno Smith is second with a 91 graded grade with the clean pocket, and Josh Allen right behind Geno Smith, 90.1 with the clean pocket. So
sheesh, elite company.
Yeah, elite company. And not only is he probably one of the better passing quarterbacks this year, but he's also eighth in the league in rushing yards with 132. So I know a lot of people, they like to get that fantasy value from quarterbacks that run. Hey, he's top 10 in running the ball, and he's top 5 to 10 in almost every major passing category right now, Geno Smith. If he's somehow still in waivers in any of your leagues, go pick him up and start him.
Yeah, for sure. Geno Smith, one of the big surprise players of fantasy this year. Another big surprise player and my last treat is Daniel Jones, having a very productive year as the quarterback 11 and definitely outperforming expectations. Little fun fact, Daniel Jones is actually the first quarterback since 1950 with 5 game-winning drives in the first 7 games of the season. So he's doing well. Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll stated that stopping Jones and Saquon on the ground is as hard as it gets, and that's high praise coming from a coach that likes to run the ball a lot. So yeah, I said it once, I'll say it again. Brian Daboll is doing a great job in New York. He's unlocking Daniel Jones' rushing ability that we haven't seen ever since he's been there, and that has made him a treat, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that team probably has the best quarterback, running back, running duo in the league
right now.
Yeah, a lot of people are probably saying Josh Allen, Singletary, Jalen Hurts, Miles Sanders, Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins. Right now, it's definitely Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley without a doubt. And they've been doing it with no wide receivers the whole year and winning games right now. So
that's crazy, yeah.
But that'll lead us to now our killers. So I know, it's Halloween season. Everyone has like that favorite, killer movie. I know mine growing up was Michael Myers. So
Friday the 13th.
That was yours, Freddy Krueger.
Friday the 13th. Yeah.
So everyone has that, it's that Halloween time. They want to watch those scary movies, but there's some guys.
Child's Play too. Child's Play.
Yeah. I love Chucky. I used to love Chucky. I always reference like Chucky. Like, he's just so funny too. Yeah, but there's some guys that you play in fantasy that are just straight killers, and every week you see those guys on the opposing team, and you might shiver a little bit.
That week you're screwed.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna need your team's best week because that guy might outscore 2 or 3 dudes on your team. Just straight killers, straight guys that are scary to face.
Yeah.
Week in and week out this year. I'll start off with Bravo's boy.
Straight killer.
Austin Eckler. Just a straight killer this year, the RB1. Actually, he was first in the league in fantasy points overall, but after Lamar Jackson's week last week, so he got those 21 extra points. I put him ahead of Austin Eckler. Yeah. So he has that one extra game. But nonetheless, Austin Eckler, he's averaging the third most fantasy points per game this year, 24.96. Pretty much 25 points per game he's scoring as a running back, right behind Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, the teammates over there in Buffalo. Has 8 touchdowns his last 4 games. The first 3 weeks he had no touchdowns, and I remember I picked Austin Eckler as one of my picks, and I said this is the week he's going to score a touchdown. And he scored 3 that week, and since then he scored 5 more, just averaging 2 touchdowns per game. Has 5 rushing, 3 receiving, so he's seen it on both ends of the field. He's been the running back 1 overall 3 of the last 4 weeks. Week 6 he was RB3, so weeks 4, 5, and 7 he was RB1, and then week 6 he just finished at the RB3. Another guy who's putting up 30-point bombs almost every game, it seems like. Yeah, and he's first in the league in yards after the catch with 467. So
they're feeding him.
Yeah, especially with the iffy wide receiver situation. Keenan Allen was banged up. Now Mike Williams is banged up. They really haven't had like their full offense there in San Diego or Los Angeles. They haven't had their. Well, they're looking like the San Diego Chargers. So, but Austin Eckler is the main guy, and Herbert's gonna go to him more and more.
Yeah, they always have those dump off passes too, even if it's for like 2 yards. That's very valuable in PPR leagues.
Yeah, and especially with Eckler, he just goes and goes and goes and goes.
Yeah,
and goes.
Yeah.
You're not bringing that guy down. So
Austin Eckler, a PPR demon for sure.
And if you're facing someone with Austin Eckler this week, you can take a little deep breath because the Chargers are on a bye this week. So you get that. You better win this week. This is your time to beat that team.
This is your time for sure. It's gonna bring me to my first killer. Saquon Barkley has a great matchup against Seattle this week, and Saquon Barkley actually hasn't seen less than 18 touches in all but 2 games this season. So, and in those 2 games where he didn't receive 18 touches, it was week 3 versus Dallas. He still had 22.6 PPR points. And week 5 at Green Bay, he still had 19.6 PPR points. In the Green Bay game, he came out of the game for a couple snaps because he was injured. So this dude is just like on his Mamba mentality. His season stats, he has 726 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. He has 25 receptions out of 30 targets for 180 receiving yards. And he has 141.6 PPR points, which is the 12th highest overall in fantasy. So Saquon Barkley, a killer, man. If you're facing him against Seattle this week, you might be screwed.
Yeah, and I was happy to get him in the second round for sure. I was either getting him or Mark Andrews. I'm happy that I went with Saquon for sure. Another killer, his second year being a killer, just like Eckler. Cooper Kupp, the wide receiver too. And if you faced them, another team that they just got rid of their bye week. So if you faced the team with Cooper Kupp last week, I hope you got that win because for now on, Cooper Kupp's going to be locked and loaded, ready to go in Los Angeles. 4th overall in fantasy points per game, right after Austin Eckler, averaging 24.8. So just a little less points than Austin Eckler. Cooper Kupp leading the NFL in targets per game. And not only does he lead the NFL in targets, but he's catching almost everything. The guy does not drop a ball. He's also first in catches he's getting 9.3 receptions per game. Just outstanding numbers. Already with 607 yards, 5 total touchdowns, 4 receiving and 1 rushing touchdown. So looking like that guy who he was last year, Cooper Kupp, man.
Yeah, we were saying like we don't know how he wasn't the first wide receiver taken in redraft,
or just the first overall player taken.
Yeah, like he's something special for sure. Another guy that's something special at the wide receiver position, we talked about him earlier, Stephon Diggs. He's facing Green Bay this week, who ranks first in NFL in pass defense, but still Josh Allen's favorite target, and he will continue to be. He's number 6 highest fantasy scorer this season. And one thing I love about Stephon Diggs is I love his week 14 through week 17 schedule. He has New York Jets week 14, Miami week 15, Chicago week 16, and Cincinnati week 17. So they're all pretty solid pass defense except Miami, but I can see him having big days. It doesn't even really matter if the pass defense is elite for Stephon Diggs. He's that guy.
Yeah, and the Buffalo's one of the top offense in the league. Like I just said, Josh Allen's first in the league in points per game. Stephon Diggs is second in the league in fantasy points per game. That is he's second, and he's gonna go off regardless. And even though you said Packers are first in the league in pass defense, but that's because they played some bad teams, and Aaron Rodgers has kind of been at fault for them not winning against the Jets, the Giants, the Commanders last week. A lot of teams with kind of questions in that receiving room, but Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo, definitely no questions there. Straight killer for sure. And then my last killer is gonna be Travis Kelce. Tight end one, once again, looking like he will be the tight end one again this year. Mark Andrews a little banged up. Only one that I'd say he would be in competition with, or maybe Kyle Pitts, who we've already put in our tricks. So Travis Kelce, a straight killer. I saw a tweet the other day, and it was like, who is the funnest fantasy player to own? And off the top of my head, it was just Travis Kelce. He's like my favorite fantasy player. I had him last year, have him again this year. He's just so fun to own. Like, you're a Travis Kelce owner. You know how fun it is.
He's so consistent.
He's so consistent. You know he's in the tight end spot. You know he's going to outscore. And if you're facing someone with Travis Kelce, you know, like, it's going to be a bad week for me because my tight end is not going to do what Travis Kelce is going to do. And if my tight end could just maybe, like, just squeeze in, like, those weeks you want to – if you're facing Travis Kelce, I feel like those weeks you want to pick up a tight end that could maybe put up 20 that game. You might not start your main tight end that's putting up 10, 12 points a game. You might just want to put like a Taysom Hill in there that might score 25, 30 that game, maybe. And if not, hey, my tight end wasn't going to outscore Travis Kelce anyway, so who cares? But Travis Kelce, 6 of the last 7 years, he's finished as the overall tight end 1. Last year, he was the tight end 2, just behind Mark Andrews.
Yeah, it's almost a surprise if he doesn't score like 15 or more points.
Yeah, exactly. And he's going to be targeted. Even though they brought in Kadarius Toney, he's still going to be Mahomes' favorite target.
For sure.
He's actually the highest graded receiver this year in the NFL. He's 90.9 graded at receiver. And he's not even a receiver. So he already has 7 receiving touchdowns this year. His career high is 11. So in 7 weeks, he's already averaging 1 touchdown per game. If he plays a full season, he's probably going to beat his career high at 11 touchdowns total. He's top 10 in the league in receptions, top 15 in targets per game. As a tight end, I mean, Travis Kelce just a killer, man. If you have him, like, he's worth a first round, second round pick year in, year out for as long as he's in the league, I believe.
Yeah, for sure, man. And my last killer is actually who you just mentioned, Mark Andrews, the tight end 2. So his shoulder injury is not considered to be serious, but nonetheless, he's Lamar Jackson's favorite target. And Lamar Jackson loves the tight end position. We saw when Andrews came out, Isaiah Likely came in, and he came out of the game with six receptions, 7 targets, 77 receiving yards, and a touchdown for 19.7 PPR points. So once Andrews comes back and he's 100%, he's going to be taking that role back once again, and he's going to be going off once again. In weeks 15 through 17, the Ravens play Pittsburgh, Atlanta, and Cleveland. So these are all games where Andrews could just, pop off at any point for like 30, 40 plus. Andrews is the number 21 overall fantasy scorer this season, and he hasn't even been 100% the last 2 weeks due to injury. And he's still the tight end too. So wait till he's 100%, and he's going to be performing to expectations for sure.
For sure. Another guy that if you have Mark Andrews and you're going against Travis Kelce, you're confident.
Yeah, that's like the only even matchup for tight ends.
That is. It's like, and like Travis Kelce, he has his bye coming up just like Austin Eckler. So if you're facing Travis Kelce this week, the team with Travis Kelce this week can take a little deep breath. But after that, good luck the rest of the way. But yeah, those were our killers. Those guys that just come in and just
kill your team,
beat your team, and you got to rely on. If you're facing Austin Eckler like a Cooper Kupp, you gotta hope, he's gonna outscore at least both of your receivers or both of your running backs, guys like that, like a Mark Andrews, Stephon Diggs. These guys are gonna come in, put up 30 points, and you're just hoping one of your receivers can maybe put up 20 that game. Yeah, and
we always talk about, or we were talking about last episode, or a couple episodes ago, that you want to get those for sure picks in drafts, and Andrews and Kelce, those are those for sure picks.
Yeah, and all these guys were going in the first, two rounds, and if you got those guys, like, perfect. That's it.
They're performing to their expectations.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's our little segment. It's gonna bring us to a little bit of trade talk we have going on. Well, there was a trade that was already completed. We got Kadarius Toney, was traded from the New York Giants to the Kansas City Chiefs for a conditional 3rd rounder and a 6th rounder. To me, this is just, the Chiefs showing that they're looking to replace Tyreek Hill. And, the other wide receivers outside of Juju, they really haven't even showed potential. And even so, Juju's the wide receiver 20, so that's like borderline wide receiver 2. So they're looking to upgrade that wide receiver room for sure, and maybe Kadarius Toney's the answer. He has Tyreek Hill speed, so just has to implement some other skill sets that Tyreek has, and he can be Tyreek Hill prototype.
Yeah, and even though the year that Daniel Jones is having, like you mentioned, he's not the quarterback that Patrick Mahomes is. I mean, no one is. So if you could put someone like Kadarius Toney out there, I mean, they haven't really used a lot of Sky Moore this year. I know MVS has not been seen really at all. McCord Hardman had his best game last week. Same with Juju, but yeah, you're not gonna trade some picks to bring in. Once again, you're not gonna be trading these picks to bring in a guy that is gonna be your fourth receiver on the depth chart. He's gonna plug right in and be starting week in and week out if he's healthy. And he's still young. The Giants were talking about trading him in the offseason, and they finally came around to doing so, and that opens the door for guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, the rookie. He's looked good as the main receiver the last 2 weeks in New York, and now it's for sure that they're that confident in Wan'Dale Robinson that they got rid of Toney and whatever.
Also a good thing for Saquon, they're gonna be feeding him.
Yeah, even more so.
Even more.
So if you have another guy, Wan'Dale Robinson, if he's on waivers in your league, go pick him up. I picked him up a couple weeks ago to get ready, and I like Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely the new wide receiver one in New York. Another trade, actually, I kind of heard about. It's a trade rumor. I heard Kareem Hunt, maybe to the Bills, Buffalo Bills. A contender is definitely going to be the one that trades for Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's actually in the final year of his contract, and he's being shopped around for a 4th-round pick. So, yeah, the only teams that would trade for him would be a playoff contender. But in my opinion, I think the Buffalo Bills are the front runner, just basing my opinions off reports I read on Twitter.
Yeah, we also the Chiefs on last episode. We're looking at.
Chiefs want to bring him back too. I heard for a little reunion.
We'll see. I know like the Bills are trying to get J.D. McKissick in the offseason. He went back to sign with Washington, and they drafted James Cook, and he fumbled on his first NFL carry, and ever since then they haven't really trusted him with the ball. So, it's not James Cook's time yet, but we'll see.
But if that Hunt trade to the Bills happens, that could be a big move for the Bills. Could definitely make them the Super Bowl favorites.
If they're not already,
if they're not already, and I see Hunt's fantasy value skyrocketing if that trade happens, or any trade, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's our trade talk, and we're just gonna be moving on to our picks, our 5 picks for the week.
Week 8,
Week 8. You want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Alrighty, I'm gonna go with your boy Tony Pollard, of the Dallas Cowboys, running back. Week 15 of 2020, the only other game Ezekiel Elliott has missed in the last 4 years. Tony Pollard had 132 total yards and 2 touchdowns for 31.2 total PPR points. And he has a great matchup this week against the Chicago Bears. So, yeah, Tony Pollard is going to go off for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely start him. Definitely for sure. Another guy I said should buy low a couple weeks ago too. So,
yeah.
My first up is going to be Kenneth Walker, my first pick. I know you picked him last week. I'm going to pick him this week. Has the most rushing yards in the NFL the last 2 weeks. And he's actually tied for second. So he has 265 yards the last 2 weeks. And if you do his yards after contact, he has 200 yards after contact, which is tied for second in the NFL the last 2 weeks. Which is crazy. Just running through people. I know you saw last week in that game against the Chargers. Just you cannot bring that guy down. He's getting more fantasy points on a week-to-week basis since taking over. Had 14.8 in week 5, then up to 19, then all the way up to 28.7. Getting more carries, 8 to 21 to 23, and more yards also, 88 to 97 to 167 yards last week. 4 total touchdowns the last 3 weeks. We say Seattle's a very run-heavy offense, and if you have a guy as talented as Kenneth Walker, who is now the front runner to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, you're going to run a lot with that guy, and I think he's definitely going to go off this week.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a hot pick this week. My second pick is going to be Devontae Smith. I feel like Minka and the Pittsburgh Steelers could be very focused on A.J. Brown this week, so that's going to leave Devontae Smith open. Smith had 15.4 PPR points week 6 against an elite Dallas defense, and he's fresh off a bye. So Devontae Smith, I definitely see him having a big week against Pittsburgh for sure.
Yeah, we talked about Pittsburgh the last couple of weeks, saying they have the worst defense against them. They allow the most fantasy points to wide receivers. So
yeah. So maybe even A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith due for a big game.
Exactly. And then that's going to be my next up is going to be my second pick, DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift owners can rejoice now. I can rejoice. He's finally back after missing a couple weeks and then a bye week, of course. But he's back, and they're going to rely on DeAndre Swift. The Lions have not won a game since DeAndre Swift was the main running back in that offense. Jamal Williams, he came in. His first 2 games filling in for DeAndre Swift, he had 23-plus fantasy points. But since then, he has less than 8 the last 2 games. So started hot, has cooled off. Actually had his first career fumble last week, which was a big one.
Big one.
So now DeAndre Swift's coming in there. He's healthy. You know, the people say he's going to come back after the bye week, but they gave him another week off. And then Jamal Williams did what he did that game, which was not a good sign. So, and DeAndre Swift, you're looking at him averaging 8.56 yards per carry right now.
Sheesh.
So he's getting a limited amount of carries this year because he's been banged up and kind of sharing the backfield with Jamal. But even with those limited numbers, I mean, I don't even know why you would limit a backfield with the guy that's averaging 8.56 yards per carry. That's just
It's just injury
insane.
concerns.
It's a first down almost every time he's running the ball.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And like I said, Lions haven't won since week 2 when Swift was the main back. So going back to Swift this week.
Yeah, I feel like they're just really concerned about his injury. They're just trying to play it safe.
Yeah.
My third pick is going to be T. Higgins. Jamar Chase actually out with the hip injury, could be 4 to 6 weeks. Chase was averaging 10.6 targets a game before injury, so we're definitely going to see T. Higgins eat up all those targets. We're definitely going to see Tyler Boyd eat up those targets, even Joe Mixon. And Higgins finished week 7 with 5 receptions for out of 7 targets for 93 yards and 14.3 PPR points. So that's solid flex play already. With Jamar Chase out, he turns automatically into a wide receiver 1, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. It's gonna be interesting to see what they can do with. I mean, Jamar Chase is just that big playmaker, so they're gonna have to. And so is Tyler Boyd and Higgins. So
Yeah.
they're gonna get a lot of those air yards, and a lot of those big, deep plays that Joe Burrow has been accustomed to.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll bring me to my third pick. Gonna be Raheem Mostert, taking over the backfield over there in Miami. 2 of his last 3 games, he has 19 plus fantasy points. A guy that I was not high on to start the season because of his injury, history in the league. But he's facing the Lions defense that's allowing the second most yards per game and the second most touchdowns a game to running backs. And now he's seen even more in the receiving end. I know Chase Edmonds was kind of going to be like their receiving back, but Raheem Mostert has just taken over the backfield just completely. As long as he's healthy, he's starter week in and week out if you have that guy.
Yeah, he's playing that "We Taking Over" song by Akon.
Yeah, and I still don't trust Raheem Mostert just because, like I said, his injury history. But
yeah,
I mean,
he's a shifty running back. He can do some damage on the field for sure.
If you can pick him up and he stays healthy, like you say, he's shifty. He can definitely run. He runs well. He's a good runner.
He's really good at running. My fourth pick is gonna be T. Higgins' teammate Tyler Boyd. I read reports that he's going to be lined up in multiple spots due to the Jamar Chase injury, so that's more potential to score fantasy points. And I always feel like he always goes off whenever there's an absence from Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. So I believe this will be a very pass-heavy game against a bottom 15 passing defense, and Tyler Boyd looking to build off his 8 receptions out of 9 targets, 155 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown game against a terrible Atlanta passing defense. Yeah. Start Boyd for sure.
Yeah, and if Tyler Boyd's on any other team, pretty much in the NFL, he's the wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 on mostly every team.
Yeah, so. I was hearing that maybe like the Falcons would be a good suitor because like he'll be a wide receiver 1 right away in Atlanta. They got Drake London, but.
Yeah, but he's been slowly declining.
Yeah, and they might not even pass the ball that often because of Mariota. So,
but yeah, good pick there. My fourth pick's gonna be Travis Etienne, now the official starter of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and why not? He's looked good the last couple weeks. Like we said, Kenneth Walker is first the last 2 weeks in rushing yards. Travis Etienne is second in the league and rushing yards last 2 weeks, averaging 6.1 yards per carry. Another guy who's had limited touches, but he's getting 6. That's why they trade away James Robinson because and that's why Jamal Williams has been brought up in trade discussions because if you have guys that are averaging this much yards per carry, why would you want to split a backfield for someone that's not doing what these guys are doing,
Yeah. Other teams could use those players.
Yeah, exactly. And you can get draft picks for these guys. Why not? And he just scored his, and they're both young. DeAndre Swift's young, Travis Etienne's young. Why would you want to mix in, the older backs with these young guys that you wasted high draft picks on,
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, and he scored his first career touchdown last week, averaging 15.4 fantasy points per game the last 3 weeks. Now, like I said, the official starter, expect a big game for Travis Etienne. If you had him kind of stashed on your bench, now's the time to start him this week.
Yeah, for sure. You went with the running back, so I'm going to go with the running back for my last pick. Dameon Pierce, actually the second most productive rookie running back after the late, great Breece Hall. Could come down to Pierce or Kenneth Walker for the Rookie of the Year vote. And Pierce actually has 100+ total scrimmage yard in the last 3 consecutive games. This guy's the centerpiece of the Texans offense, and they could look to feed him. Even if the Tennessee Titans rush defense is tough, they still could look to feed him. Like, what else are they going to do?
Yeah, they are going to definitely run the ball a lot. And I
Yeah.
could hear the sadness in your voice. Sounds like Brees Hall just died or something, like the late great Brees Hall. I'm like, ooh, what happened to Brees Hall? Yeah, he tore his ACL. But
Tore his
definitely sad.
ACL, had to drop him in redraft. Is the saddest thing for me, man.
Yeah.
Having to drop him in redraft, you just click drop, and it's like,
Yeah, and I saw a funny tweet. I know you don't watch Game of Thrones. Someone's like, it's like the NFL this year, like fantasy football was like the NFL, like Game of Thrones, because like you fall in love with like a player, like a character, and then like something happens to them, and then you're sad when like that. And that Brees Hall was like that guy this year for a lot of people, you know, like you're like, yes, this is the league winner that I got, you know. He could have been in our treats, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And now he's not gonna play again for a whole year. So that'll lead me to my last pick, Brandon Ayuk, a guy that I have in 2 leagues right now, the wide receiver 21, a guy that I was really high on, still young, still trying to find, you know, a place there in that receiver room behind Debo. But there is no Debo Samuel this week, already ruled out for week 8. And even with Debo playing the last 2 weeks, Brandon Ayuk saw 11 targets, which is
a lot.
Double his most on the season. Back-to-back games, seeing 11 targets is a lot. And over 80 receiving yards the last 2 games. Had 83 in week 6, had 82 in week 7. And then had 8 catches and 7 catches. So he's catching most of the targets he's getting. He's had 28.3 fantasy points in week 6, then had 15.2 in week 7. Both of those season highs to go along with the targets and the catches. And now he's going to fill in as the wide receiver 1 this week in San Francisco. They obviously have McCaffrey, and teams are going to have to worry about him. Ayuk, I think, is just super talented receiver.
Sure.
As long as his head's straight and he's on that field giving it 150%, he's could be a top receiver in the future of the NFL for sure. Yeah, definitely get him in your lineups if you have him on your bench stash.
Him and Jimmy G are kind of just, you know, reconnecting, getting back in their groove, and should improve as the season goes on for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that concludes this episode of our Halloween, and I
hope you guys enjoyed it.
Halloween special.
Yeah, happy Halloween. Hope
Happy
you guys
holidays.
Check your kids' candies and.
Have safe Halloween parties.
Be safe out
there.
Drive
safe. Don't get too drunk. Don't get too turned.
Just enjoy it, and we'll hope to see you guys on our next episode, which will be Wednesday or Thursday. We'll keep you guys updated. Again, like I said, we are on now Apple. We're on Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff.
At Your BFF Podcast on Twitter.
Yeah, and everything else, Your Big Fat Fantasy. Everything will be in the description. Like, comment, subscribe, share us. We're still trying to give away that jersey, the big jersey. It's been almost 2 months, and we still have a jersey on hold waiting for you guys. So get us to 200 subscribers,
Thank you for everything. Thank you for the support. And Your Big Fat Fantasy will be back soon, very shortly.
And have a happy Halloween, guys.
Have a happy Halloween. Thank you.